here goes nothing.
Yay!
Okay. Okay, here it is, our first episode, and we're so excited to be talking with you guys today. I'm Meg.
And I'm Karen.
Yes.
So happy to be here.
A quick introduction. I am a mom to 7 wild monkeys that I am crazy about. And I've been homeschooling now for over, 11 years, I believe.
Yeah, and I am a mom of 4. And my oldest is 14, and I started homeschooling him preschool age. So what does that make me? 10 years, I think.
Yeah. So we have a lot of experience, and we're really excited to share it with you guys today. We thought it'd be really fun to kind of tell you our story of how we got started, because we each felt a call to homeschool, hence the name, Call to Homeschool. And so let's go ahead and kick it off with Karen. Tell us your story.
Yeah, so I'm going to just let you know why we made this decision for our family. I know it's a hard choice, and coming to this decision, nobody does it lightly. So just a little background on me. I do have a degree in secondary education, and I was teaching for a couple of years before having my oldest son. And Brennan, that's his name, he was just always a really bright kid. And like I said, I started teaching him preschool age. And in preschool, he was already reading and was a little bit bored with the preschool curriculum that we were using. And so I started just kind of researching and trying to figure out what else I could do for him, because I loved how much he loved learning. That was kind of a quality I thought was really special that he had. And so I was looking at charter schools, I was looking at just different options, and then I remembered that my aunt had homeschooled her kids. And so I called her. I'm like, okay, what should I do? Tell me if I can do this. Because I was, terrified at the thought of it, honestly. And so she gave me, a lot of advice and some books to read and different things. And I started praying about it, and my husband did as well. And he had a client who gave him a book. It was the Thomas Jefferson Education book. And so he comes home and he's like, you need to read this. And it was the same book my aunt had already recommended to me. So I was like, you're right, I do. So I read that book, and I read several other books. Pretty much went to the library and found every book on homeschooling that existed and started reading them all to help ease my mind, and also to help me be educated on what I was getting myself into. But I just, most of all, felt a really strong prompting spiritually that this was what we needed to do, and so did my husband. And so we followed through on that. And it was scary. I was really scared. I was afraid to tell people because I was a little embarrassed about making that decision. And I think that my biggest memory of it was really that first day of kindergarten, when he would have been getting on the bus, and the bus stop was right outside our window. Mm-hmm. And we looked out the window, and I remember looking and seeing all his little neighborhood friends get on the bus for the first time for kindergarten. And I remember having almost just this internal panic attack, but then at the same time realizing this is good, it's okay. And the bus drove away, and I felt at peace. I was like, okay, I can do this, I think. But I also know that this is what I'm supposed to do. And so that was kind of our beginning, and where we started. I started with the K-12 program.
Okay. That's an online program.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot more about curriculum down the road, but that was where we started. It wasn't a good fit for us, but it was an easy start for us because I didn't know what I was doing, and it gave me everything and told me what to do. So that was our starting point, but I spent most of that year trying to figure out exactly what I did want to do, because I didn't like it very much.
Yeah.
And so just initially for me, I think that first year is stressful because you don't know what you're doing, you're afraid of so many things. So know that that's a normal feeling. I think Megan probably felt the same thing, but there's a lot of fears going on, and so find something that's just an easy jump-in point for you that you feel comfortable with. And that's our beginning, and I'll let you take it away for yours.
Okay, so if you know much about me, you will know that I have, my kids came really, really fast. And my first 3 were actually born in under 3 years. And so the idea of, have you ever listened to Jim Gaffigan? And he talks about, I think, having his 4th baby. And he said, you want to know what it's like to have a 4th baby? Imagine you're drowning and someone hands you a child. And that's what I felt like. So my first 5 kids are born in 6 years. And the thought of homeschooling, I thought, are you kidding me? I'm already drowning. I'm already overwhelmed. There's no way I want to do any of this. And the funny thing is, I had made an Excel spreadsheet when all my kids would be in school, Like, I can do this. I can survive for 3 years, or I can do something until like some of these kids are gone, and like then I'll get my sanity, right? So that's kind of like the mindset I started with. And my oldest, so they're all just a grade apart, because when you come that fast, you're only a grade apart. And he was in a preschool, and I had no beef with the preschool. They were super cute. And the next year when they were teaching him to read, I started questioning, like, this really doesn't seem like a practical way to teach a child to read. And so then I started researching preschools, and I paid a pretty penny for a very good preschool. And it was a really great preschool, and it actually helped me gain the confidence to teach my kids to read. Learning Dynamics was the preschool, and it was a really good one, and we were doing that route. So then I had 2 in preschool, so I'm kind of paying a lot of money for that. And then the next year we did kindergarten. So I had a kindergartner and 2 preschoolers. And I decided I didn't want the public education route. I thought I had gotten into this better preschool, and I enjoyed the harder education, and it was more involved for me. And so for me, I started looking at private schools. So I paid for a private school plus 2 in kind of a, I don't know the right word, the preschool, this elite? I don't know what, you know what I mean? Like it's a really good preschool, but you pay for it. So then I'm paying private school and the 2 in preschool. And it was kind of crazy because I have so many babies and I'm pregnant, and you have to put time in to the private schools. And after that first year, I had the strongest feeling that summer, like, you're supposed to homeschool. And I thought, oh no, wrong gal. You've got the wrong gal. Like, I will raise these babies and I will do the best to my ability, but you're asking too much. So then I do what a lot of people do, is you tell other people so that they can help you to feel better. Right? So I would go to some people who I thought for sure were going to be like, you can't do this. And they were, surprisingly, they were the supportive ones, and said like, no, you totally can do this. And then the people who I thought would be supportive were the ones saying, oh no, honey. Like, if you have 1 kid, you can homeschool, but you've got a jungle. Like, you can't do this. And so I chickened out, and I put my kids into school. So now I have a first grader, a kindergartner, and a preschooler, all at different times of the day. Now at this point I have a 5-month-old plus a 1-year-old. So it felt like a complete zoo, and I think it was supposed to feel that way because it gave me the courage to pull them out. So they lasted 1 month, and we pulled them out, and I had nothing because I did it on a whim. Like, I was supposed to do this, and I got scared, and I put them in, and so I pulled them out. And so for a couple weeks we just relaxed, and we colored, and we looked at books, until we started figuring out what in the world we wanted to do. So I mean, he was first grade, and now he is a junior. So yeah, I've been doing it a long time.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you decide you want to homeschool, so now what? Right? That's kind of the next step. Meg says she pulled hers out, and they colored for a few weeks because she had no idea what she was going to do. So we want to kind of jump into some of, the what next.
Yeah,
what's
like
the first thing
the
you have to do?
practical steps. What do I do?
So those of you that are seasoned homeschoolers, bear with us. We're starting at the very beginning because we know that that's where everyone needs to start. But we will get into more in-depth stuff. We have high schoolers, both of us now, so we will cover high school, we will cover middle school. We're going to try and cover all the different levels throughout our different episodes. So do bear with us as we cover these basics, but for the newbies, I know that this will be helpful for you as well.
Yeah. So Karen's going to start with this, and I think this is a really important one, and I don't know if I had it in the beginning other than I just felt like I was supposed to, but she's going to talk about why finding your why is helpful.
Yeah. I think finding your why is super important here, and both of us had, kind of a spiritual impression. This is what we need to do, like the Lord told us.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest why, and it still is my biggest why that I hang on to. But typically people are going to jump right in and be like, okay, I'm homeschooling, now I need to know what curriculum to use, and now I need to have all these worries and all these fears. And I think once you find your initial reasoning for doing that, the rest of that is a lot easier to figure out. Because if you know why you're doing this, you're going to know a little more of what style you want to use when you're schooling your kids, and how you want it to look in your home is going to be a little more tangible, and those kinds of things. So I'm going to talk about a couple of whys that I think a lot of people have that are common whys. And we're going to cover more of these things down the road, but here's just kind of some beginning whys of why people would do this. Negative behaviors kids are learning. I hear this so often, like, Actually, my cousin called me recently and she said, I think I'm going to homeschool. I'm pulling my son out because he comes home from kindergarten with the worst behaviors that he's learning, and he never acted that way until he started school. So that's a big one. They don't like the government enforcements or regulations. That's a big common one as well right now, especially with a lot of, the political things going on within the school systems. That's a huge why. Wanting a closer relationship as a family. This has been probably one of the biggest benefits I've seen of homeschooling. Is the relationships that we've built in our home and the time that we get to spend together.
And what's fun, quick side note on that one, is that now we're reaping what we've sown, and we're getting to harvest this relationships that we have fostered. So that one keeps me going.
Yeah, me too. Wanting to incorporate faith into your education, I think that's a really big one for people of faith. We both are, and I love that I can talk about God when we learn history and science and all of those things, because I think that those are my values, so I love to be able to instill those in my children.
Yeah, and that there doesn't have to be a separation. That it can cross over, and so it's not an awkward thing like, now I'm church self, now I'm school self. Is that religion is mixed within everything,
which is how life really is.
Yeah.
Learning delays or disabilities, that's a big one for a lot of people. I actually have 2 kids with pretty intense ADHD, and so that's been a huge benefit for us. Problems socially, there are a lot of kids that are pulled out of school because they're not fitting in or they're being bullied. And you're obviously not going to have that in your home.
I hope not.
Hopefully not. Maybe
you've got bigger problems,
but not in that kind of way.
Yeah,
it's definitely different, and that solves a lot of problems. The feeling that you should. We talked about that already. Children learning at their own pace. I think this is huge as well.
Yes.
Some kids learn at a much more advanced rate. Some kids are learning at a slower rate. It doesn't make them better or worse in any way. It just makes them all different, because we all are so different. And the huge thing I love about homeschooling is, each day we can tailor it to that child and their needs and make it work for them and their learning. And also along with that, they can learn things that they love and really focus on something that matters most to them. If they hate one subject, you can scale it back and tailor it to them to fit them better. More control over the things they're learning. That's kind of the same thing there. You can cater it to each child. And then safety. I wrote down safety because I feel like right now there's so much, the school violence and the shootings and all of the scary things that are happening. Every time a new one of those happens, I feel grateful I have my babies home with me.
Yeah, I can agree more.
It's a huge one. So helping find your why helps kind of solidify your choice. My why is a combination of a lot of those things. It might not have been so much initially, but the longer I've homeschooled, the more my whys have grown.
Yes.
Because I've learned more, and it's just made it, even better. And like I said, I've seen so many benefits of homeschooling my kids over the years. I think as we go along, I've seen growth in ways that I wouldn't have seen them if they were in school. I can cover that now. I don't know. What do you think? Do you want to jump in on any of those points before I?
No, I think I agree that my why at the beginning was just that I felt called to do it, right? And then to throw in the mix, I decided to have, well, not really decided, if you follow me on Instagram, I have one more baby and then a surprise baby, right? And so, life doesn't slow down just because you homeschooled, but those relationships, and I have 3 teenagers, almost 1 more in a few more months, and I've always heard, the teenage years are the worst, and I think, when is it coming, or should I wait? But the relationship is built there, and so if anything, it's my why is just my life is the relationship I have with my kids and that they have with dad and as our family, and so I can get through hard days because I am reaping what I've sown with my bigger kids. I'm seeing it.
Yeah,
I'm already being paid out with it.
Right. I know we're not having any of that teen angst at our house either. My teenager is lovely and I enjoy his presence very much. So a couple of benefits that I've seen just from homeschooling I'm going to throw out there. Just my kids are kind and respectful. They respect me, they respect other adults and other friends, and I've been told this so many times, just around that your kids are so well behaved, and I think that comes just from, they have the common or constant influence of their mom and, helping them through these difficult times. They're friends with each other and with me, the relationship is huge. We've touched on that a lot. And I think a big benefit is that they're comfortable with people of all ages.
Yes.
They're okay having a conversation with any adult. It doesn't scare them like it would you know, if they're in school and not used to more interaction with adults and people of older.
Yes, I work with Brendan in our co-op, and there wouldn't be a big age gap, and I learn from Brendan as much as he learns from me, and so there's no fear there.
But I think that I remember being in school and being afraid of the kids a grade ahead of me, and being afraid to talk to them and being like, oh, they're the big kids, you know, and I don't think that when you're homeschooling you have as much of that age separation, because you're not divided into these little, you know, you are 9, you are in the 9-year-old class, you were born this year. In homeschool setting, you get a bigger variety of that. And it's really helpful and I think beneficial for kids. They're learning at their own pace and they're more confident in their abilities because they're not constantly comparing themselves to others. That happens in school a lot, is the constant, she's better at me than math, I must be terrible, and so that happens when they're comparing themselves in the school setting, and you don't get that.
Yeah, no, I always like to tease my kids that you're the head of your class, but unfortunately you're also the last.
Oh, that's funny.
But then there really is no comparison, because they're the only one in that grade.
Right, yeah.
So.
And then one thing that I love is that my kids are not really overly concerned with materialism, like what they wear or what latest gadget they have. Because when you're in school, that's all the kids are talking about. Oh, you know, I'm wearing polo and I'm wearing, I don't know, what are popular.
Old Navy? Is that a big one?
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't pay much attention to that myself. But I think that the kids have less of that. They don't worry quite so much about the clothes and the shoes that they have, or the toy that they have, or the technology that they have, because they don't have that comparison all the time going on. And I think that homeschooling instills more of a love of learning than they would get in school.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So I'm going to, and this is, I don't think it's a funny question, but it was a question that kind of surprised me that a lot of people have, is the logistics of how to take your kid out of school. And they're your children. You take them out, right? You can, so yours were never in school, and mine were in a private school and a preschool, and I just called them up and I said, guess what, we're going to homeschool, so they won't be coming back anymore. And I actually, with the private school, because they need the students to have the money, and so I got a little bit of pushback and tried to talk me out of it, and it's going to be so hard, you're not going to be able to do this, you're going to lose your spot. And I just had to kind of stand a little firm. Public school, I don't know if you get as much of a pushback.
I have heard people have from their teachers.
Okay,
but
so maybe
I think it's going to vary.
Yeah, from person to person. And so there's no reason why you couldn't send a nice thank you to the teacher if you enjoyed the staff, the principal, but they're your kids, they're your stewardship, and you can take them out. Now, what do you do legally to be able to homeschool? So like Karen said, she did the K-12 program. So you're technically registering your child with the K-12 program, so they are still in the system. And so they would be considered a part of a charter school, and they were registered through the charter school. So Karen's kids, that's what her route is, and they still have some of the things that they use through My Tech High. And so they're technically registered as a charter school. My kids are not. I'm out of the system for as long as I could possibly do it. And so you do have to go let your district know that you are homeschooling. So I went through, this is just for Utah law, and you'll have to look up your law in your state. But Utah law, all you have to do is make an affidavit and go turn it into your district. And if your district tries to push you and say, no, you have to sign our paper, legally you do not.
So explain what an affidavit is.
Okay, so your statement can literally be, my name is Megan Thomas, these are my children, and we've decided to homeschool. And it can be that simple, and then you do have to have it notarized. Your bank can do it, there's usually somebody in your neighborhood who's a notary, right? My husband's a notary, you can't notarize your own, but he had a friend who did ours. And then the great news, once you have that done and the affidavit sent in, you don't have to redo it every year. And I actually thought you did, so that was great. I found out.
Have you been doing it every year?
I have done it several times.
Oh, wow.
Nobody ever stopped me. You don't even have to go into the district. You can mail it into the district. And so that covers you, if you want to, and I'll put this in the show notes, but it's www.uhea.org, Utah Home Education Association. And they have a link on there with sample affidavits that you can go and do. And so don't ever feel pressured that you have to sign their form, because I know one of the forms I saw, it just said something along the lines that I was not comfortable with. Like, you will teach your children what we want you to teach. Something along those lines. And so there is fine print, so you don't have to. And so in Utah, that's all you have to do.
That's going to vary state to state depending on where you are. So yeah, you'll definitely need to look up your state's laws on homeschooling.
Yes.
And it's easy to find if you just Google, whatever state you live in and homeschooling. It's pretty easy. Most states will have a website like that you'll go to figure it out.
Yes, and so that's just for Utah. Sorry, I didn't want to look up all 50 states. Love you, but just Google that business. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts. You go and you tell them that you're not going to homeschool anymore, and you send in an affidavit, or you.
And you'll want to tell the school you're attending as well.
Yeah.
Just let them know. Same kind of thing. You may get pushback, but you do have control and you do have the power to be able to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's, like we said, this is the introduction phase, and so, sorry, I'm going to stop because we can keep going.
Okay.
We have 10 minutes left.
Oh,
do we
okay.
want to break these up into more, or do we want to go with...
What do you think?
Because I can edit that off.
I'm sorry if I went too long.
No, I
had more to
actually
say. I was like, oh, I'm going to stop because we're getting short.
I was going to say, I'd rather just talk and spread it out
Okay.
into episodes, don't you think?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it would be hard for us to fill the time if we're being honest, and I looked at it.
I know, I was worried too.
No, it actually,
Okay.
it's not hard
So,
to...
do you want to stop that and that's at the end of an episode? Or do we
No,
want to keep going
I'm
and cover
saying,
it?
do we
Okay.
want to pick one of these?
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
what
do
was
we-
your other?
Mine's
detox?
the detox phase. So I don't know if we want to do that one.
Let's do that one.
Okay,
Because
and then we can do
I
that
feel like we
100
can
ways.
do, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. So we can edit the ending of that,
Okay.
I believe.
I think so. Well, we can combine clips, right?
Yes, well, yeah, because those are those, and so you just slide it over.
Perfect.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just push this and it will go over.
Okay.
Okay, so.
So in our video,
Oh, you
we're
did that!
21 minutes. Hello. You can
I
see.
forgot about the video.
Hi there. No, you get to see our little mix up here.
Okay, that's funny. I forgot. Now you get to see the legit way we are.
This is our first one. We're still figuring
We
things out.
still are figuring it out. I knew I was long-winded. I didn't know how long-winded I was.
Me too, apparently.
That's funny. That's creepy though at the same time. Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and start.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, for the oops. Yeah, there we go. This is funny. Okay, for the last part of what we're going to talk about with this first one, we're going to talk about the detox phase or the deschooling phase. And so your kids never had to experience it, right? And so she will add in her 2 cents here and there, but she didn't go through this. My kids were only, like I said, we did 1 month of first grade, and so we did kindergarten and preschool. So it wasn't as long, but I still experienced it. And then I actually interviewed some moms who took their kids out later in elementary school to get their points of view as well. So for me, it was minor, but I still heard phrases like, that's not how my teacher would do it. I thought, well, I don't care how your teacher did it, right?
I'm your teacher now.
Yeah, and I'm amazing, right? And so I did get some pushback. And so I think that's maybe the first thing to just expect, some pushback. Like, this isn't how we did it at school, and kind of that, we don't know what our new normal is now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of talk about, so with us, we just kind of relaxed. Like I said, we colored, we read some books, and we did it a little bit simpler. And I've heard for every year in school, you need about a month of detox of doing it. So this was from, I'm actually going to read the text from my friend who took out her kids when they were all in school and in elementary. And the funny thing is, her son is my son's best friend. And I had to drive him home, and I interviewed him the whole ride home, so I got his point of view too. I am that creepy mom. I own it.
I think that's great. I think it's great.
But he's a cool homeschool kid that can hang with his buddy's mom. Right? Anyway. So her text said to me, the things I remember off the top of my head were taking the time to change the beliefs they had created about themselves. It's taken a good 4 years for one of my kids to believe that this isn't a race, meaning his education is not a race. And he's just as capable of learning as anyone else. Luckily, he's not that old. Also, a big switch for both boys was to retain that reading was for understanding and not for speed. That took forever with her second son, but even her oldest son hated reading at school. When he started to believe that he really did have time to read and wasn't reading for show, he loved reading. He went from a reading hater to someone who waited for the next book to come out within the first year of homeschooling. She said so the biggest change was in the belief of who they are and not a race. and their thoughts were turned instead of learning instead of comparing, which we kind of talked about too, with the comparing, that it was about learning instead of competing. Who's the smartest in the class? I don't want to be the worst in the class. And I know that was, she jokes like, my kids can never go back to school because we're finally done with the detox phase. Like, they finally have had the mindset shift that learning can be entertaining, it can be exciting, instead of I want to pass this test.
I think that we as moms have to have a mindset shift as well in education when we start homeschooling. I had to kind of relearn what it meant as well, because I had been a public school teacher and seen how the public school worked, and I had to learn that it was okay to not do things the way the public school did. And school can look really different than a public school, and that's a good thing actually, and it's beneficial to your kids.
Yeah. So I am going to give you some 4 tips to kind of help with the detox phase. So the very first one, that's funny, when I stumble over my words, just say, bless your heart, Maggie Poo, because if you've ever heard my grandpa talk, he'd be like, wow, you're the most eloquent lady I've ever heard in my life, but it's just the way it is. I do my best. Anywho's, number 1, expect some pushback. As what I said, change can be hard for anyone, especially if you have a kid who really likes consistency. Like, I get up at 7:30 and then I eat breakfast and then I do this, and now you've just upset their whole system. Yeah. And if you're a person like that, you've upset your whole system too, right? So just plan on some discomfort. Like, that's where growth is discomfort. Step number 2, relax. This is my husband's favorite word to say to me, and it's what I'm still working on. But to take it easy. Like, if you don't do school for a week and you're just starting, your kids are not going to fail out of life. They are not, they're going to be fine. And it's just kind of that, like, we're going to be doing everything new, so let's just take a week off. Let's relax, let's sleep in, let's stay up late, let's play games. We're going to be starting all the way over. Another suggestion, number 3, is to just go play. Go to museums. That is science, just so you know. Yeah, going to museums is science, especially for kids.
Or whatever museum you're going to. Yeah,
parks, a trip, anything like that. Education becomes your lifestyle. And just like you were saying that religion doesn't have to be taken out, learning is now a part of all of your life.
Right.
That everywhere you go, you're learning things. And it's funny, we have a pass to the aquarium, and so my 7, almost 8-year-old is obsessed with penguins. So guess who studies about penguins all the time, right? Like, there's so much learning everywhere. So, like, museums are a really good place to start. Even parks, like, that's PE and like nature study, right? And then the 4th, and I think, in my opinion, it's become the most important part of homeschooling, but with the detox, is start working on your relationship with your kids and really getting to know them. In Utah law, you do not have to test your kids every year, and I get asked, like, are you worried what your kids know or don't know? And I thought, no. I know exactly their strengths. I know their weaknesses. I know when I can push them, and I know when I need to let loosen the reins. Yeah. And part of that is having that relationship. And we will go way more into depth on that one, of building that relationship and connecting with them. But that, for me, those would be my 4 suggestions of getting through the detox phase.
Yeah, those are great. And obviously, since I haven't had kids there, but I've seen other people go through that and, listen to the stories of it. And I know that it can be a really tough phase on kids and on moms, because mom is learning a whole new routine as well. And you have to be easy on yourself, and you have to know that it's going to take a little while till you figure it all out, and that's all right.
And you're always learning and growing, and it's just a lifestyle change and a mindset change. But one that I have never